In our today's class, we'll be discussing about domain names. I'm very sorry that this class is coming very late, not as expected. I had a very tight schedule today. It was my sister's traditional marriage. That was why I couldn't start as early as expected. But be it as it may, if you meet the class, I'm going to send the video online at the group so that you can still follow up if you missed the class. So today we are starting with domain names. In websites, the first thing you talk about when you want to have a website, or when we are talking about a website, is the domain name. The domain name is like your address. It's like the address. You know, there are two very important terminologies in web design. We have domain name and we have hosting. Okay, let me give you an analogy now. If you are a tenant, or if you are living in a particular place, in that place, maybe you paid for a flat in a particular place. That is where you have your parlor, you have your bedroom, you have your sitting room. That is like a hosting. Now, if someone wants to visit you, if someone wants to visit your house now, you have to give that person an address for the person to visit you. For the person to come to your house, you have to give that person an address. That address you give to a person is like a domain name. For someone to visit your website, that person must have your domain name. Without your domain name, the person cannot visit your website. So a domain name refers to as the web address. It's that address that the people type on their browser when they want to find their websites. Two people cannot have the same domain name. So we say that domain name is unique. No two persons can have the same domain name. Once a domain name is registered, another person cannot use that same domain name. Like we have yahoo.com, we have google.com, and a whole lot of domain names. So once a domain name is registered, another person cannot use that domain name. It's like a street address in the physical world, just like I explained earlier. So now, assuming you have a business and the name of the business is Chriswell, and you want to get a domain name, you can look for like something like, depending on the type of business. Yeah, if it's a commercial business, you can look for something like chriswell.com. If it's an organization, you can look for something like chriswell.org. If it's a school, you can look for chriswell.edu. You can look for the availability of domain name. Before you register a domain name, you have to first of all check for the availability of domain name. But before we start going into availability of domain name, we must have to know there is still something we call subdomain. Subdomain. Then assuming your domain name is chike.com. That is your domain name. Assuming your domain name is chike.com. And in that your domain name, you run a blog and you now set blog.chike.com. That blog.chike.com becomes a subdomain name. Now, when you register chike.com, you can now create subdomain name from the registered domain name. You can create subdomain name. That's subdomain from the registered domain name. Now, why do you even need a domain name? Why is domain name important? Just like I explained earlier, if you are living in a house or if you are living in an apartment, for someone to visit you, that person needs your address. Am I right? And if someone needs your address to visit you, now for someone to visit your website, for someone to see the content of your website, for someone to know what is contained in your website, that person needs a domain name. So the first thing you think about when you are creating a website is your domain name. Which domain name are you going to do? Are you going to use? You understand? Which domain name are you going to make use of? Now, depending on the domain name you are going to make use of, there are lots and lots and lots of domain name types. Like we have the top level domain name. The top level domain name are those most common types of domain name. Like you have .com, which stands for commercial business, which is the most common. If you're running a commercial business and you have .com, that .com stands for commercial business. When you have .org, it means that that domain name is the domain name of an organization. When you have .edu, it means that the domain name is an educational institution. When you have .net, it means that the domain name is a network organization. Like we have .mil, which means it's a military. Then when you have .org, it means it's a governmental agency. So all those types of domain name are what we call the top level domain name. That's TLD, the top level domain name. Now that top level domain name are also classified into two. There are two major categories of top level domain name. Like we have the generic domain name, and we have the country code domain name. Now, when you see something like .uk, which means that that domain name is specific. What does that .uk tell you? It tells you that that particular business is resident in United Kingdom. It is resident in United Kingdom. Like when you have a domain name that says chike.com.ng, or okay, let me not go to .ng now. Let me say chike.ng. Now, chike.ng means that Chike is a web address, it's a business that is resident in Nigeria, that's for that ng. Or chike.uk, which means that Chike is a domain or is a business or an organization that is resident in United Kingdom. Now, however, you can have domain names like .app. Automatically, it tells you that that is an application. .ninja, .voyage, and etc. etc. You understand? So when you have domain names like that, they are called the generic domain names. Like I told you earlier, we have two types of domain name. A country-specific domain name or territory-specific domain name, and a generic domain name. Now, how do we choose a domain name? What do you consider when you want to pick a domain name? What are the things you have to consider first when you are talking about picking a domain name? And every domain name that you are going to choose must be something that people can memorize easily. That is the most important thing in choosing a domain name. You have to choose a domain name that people can easily memorize. People can easily remember it. People can easily tell someone, like as you say Google, as you say Yahoo, as you say MSN, and the rest of them. You will see that people can easily memorize it. People can easily, I can tell you go to this, go to that. Now, when you talk about memorizing it, you have to choose a domain name that not people can not only memorize, but people can easily pronounce it. Of course, you can pronounce something easily, you can easily memorize it. Don't choose a domain name that people will have to struggle to spell or will find difficult to pronounce. Because when you have a domain name that people will struggle to spell or people will find difficult to pronounce, that means it cannot be easily memorized. And once a domain name cannot be easily memorized, it is difficult for you to share it. Someone can tell you, where did you get this information? You will now try to remember. But when you cannot remember, that means you cannot tell the person where you get that information. So you have to pick a domain name that is easy to memorize, easy to pronounce, and that can be turned into brand. What do you mean by turn into brand? A domain name that can be turned into a household name. A domain name that everybody that can easily that can sell everywhere. So don't pick a domain name that is too difficult, too complex. People that will find difficult to memorize it. So for a domain name to be easily remembered, it has to be simple. It has to be easily pronounced. Also, try to choose a domain name that tells people what the nature of your business. Choose a domain name that tells people the nature of your business. When you tell people.com, what it means that it's a commercial website. Like I said earlier, when you say .com, it means commercial. When you say .org, it means an organization. When you say .net, it means it's a network. When you say .gov, it means that it is what? A government. So choose a domain name that tells people about the business. So it makes people to know if I'm going to this, if I'm visiting this domain, this is what I'm expecting. Now, where can you buy a domain name? There are a lot of places you can buy a domain name. Like depending on the type of domain name and depending on the type of business you are running. Okay, assuming you are doing a business that transcends Nigeria, we are in Nigeria and you are doing a business that is not only for Nigerians, then that means you have to choose a domain name that everybody can accept. When you now say .com.ng, what it means is that that business is a commercial business that is based in what? Nigeria. Now, when you choose .com, the price of .com and .com.ng are not the same, which we are going to check out now. We are going to go online and make and check some of the domain names that we have to know their costs and where you can register your domain names. Now, there is one other thing I want to tell you about registering domain name. When you are registering a domain name, you can register a domain name with a particular registrar and use it to host a website with another host. This might sound somehow. Now, a registrar is a company that registers a domain name. Most companies that register domain names equally have self-hosting rights. Now, assuming you want to register chike.com.ng. Now, chike.com.ng shows that Chike is a commercial business based in Nigeria. Now, Only Nigerian registrars can register that. Now, when you only want to register.com, virtually every registrar can register.com for you. Okay, let's check some popular Nigerian registrars, especially the ones that I have been making, use of. Like I have Global Hosting. I have Global Hosting. I host with Global Hosting. I host with I register with Global Hosting. I register with Smart Web. Now, when you are choosing a domain name, the first thing is to check the availability of the domain name. So you can go to Global Hosting 247.com. You click on the domain, you click on register a new domain. Now, when you click on register a new domain, you allow it to load. It will show you, as it's still loading, it will show you where you can check the availability of your domain name. Good. It has already shown where you can check the availability of your domain name. Okay. Let's say we want to register chike.com. I will write chike.com. I will select I am not a robot. Okay, maybe due to network problem, it's asking me for to check that I'm a human. So say bicycles. But what we have here is motorcycles. So I will do skip. Traffic lights. Okay. Verify. Fire hydrants. Okay, crosswalk. This is what you get when you don't have a strong internet connection. Okay, that's verified. Then we can search. Chike.com. It says chike.com is not available, which means that, okay, let's hold on. I'm still doing the searching. Chike.com is not available. So which means that someone has taken chike.com. Okay, let's say chike.com.ng. Let's search again. Chike.com.ng is also taken. Okay, let me say I have something like classic E3. classice3.com. Okay, congratulations. classice3.com is available. classice3.com is available and it sells for 5,650 naira. So if I want to buy classice3.com, it's available and it sells for 5,680 naira. And if I want to buy it, I will click what? Add to cart. Now let's check for another. classice3.com.ng. Let's search for classice3.com.ng and let's see the price. Okay, you can see classice3.com.ng is available and it sells for 1,300 naira. Do you see the price difference? Do you see the price difference? .com.ng, which is a third level domain name, sells for 1,300 naira, while just.com sells for 5,000 naira and above. So when you register, if you are to register classice3.com.ng, you are telling the people that classice3 is a business based in Nigeria. But when you say classice3.com, it means that it's just a commercial business. It could be based anywhere. And we know we have this Nigerian problem. We have this problem about Nigeria where people feel somehow about doing commercial businesses, about transacting businesses with Nigerian companies. So I will advise you, when you want to register a domain name, register.com. Unless that particular business is only specific to Nigeria. If you want to do business outside Nigeria, use .com or .org or .edu. I get what I'm saying. But if it's a business that does not have any presence, that cannot be done outside Nigeria, that must be a Nigerian, it is a Nigerian, I don't care whether the white people make use of it or not, then you can make use of .com.ng or even .ng. Okay, let's say classic eatery.ng. Let's see what you are going to get. Classic eatery.ng. Okay, classic eatery.ng is sold for 10,500 naira. Classic eatery.ng is sold for 10,500 naira, almost twice the price of classiceatery.com. You can see. So you have to choose. For example, the business may be classic eatery. So when you are choosing your domain name, be careful with the domain name you are going to choose, because domain name is not something you can easily change. You cannot easily change your domain name. You cannot easily change your domain name. It's not something, it's something that is unique to you. It's something that is unique to the business. It's something that tells the people, this is the business that this guy is doing. Like when I say classic eatery, it means it's an eatery. Classic eatery is an eatery. So now the next thing we are going to talk about is hosting. Now, apart from global hosting, but before I go into hosting, apart from global hosting, there are many other places like Namecheap. You can register with Namecheap. Okay, let me say, let's try Namecheap. Namecheap. Buy a domain name. Click on buy a domain name. Let's allow the browser to load. Okay, let's still use our classic eatery. Classic eatery.com. Search. Searching. Okay. ClassicEatery.com is available on Namecheap. ClassicEatery.com is available on Namecheap. It is equally making some suggestion, and it sells for €6.97 per year. €6.97 per year. Namecheap is a foreign company, it's not a Nigerian company. Okay, let's still see classic.com.ng. Let's see what happens. ClassicEatery.com.ng, it's searching. Now, you can see what is saying here, unsupported top level domain, unsupported top level domain. So Namecheap is a foreign company. It's not a Nigerian based registrar. Therefore, you cannot register Nigerian domain, as you can see. You cannot register a domain that has .ng, but you can register .com. So you can go to any registrar you want to register with, register your domain name. You can still register a domain name with a registrar and still use it with another hosting. We are going to come to that when you come. Then there is still another company that I sometimes use, SmartWeb. I still use their hosting, their domain, I still use their registration sometimes. Let me see. ClassicE3.com. SmartWeb is a Nigerian host and a Nigerian registrar. Let's see what's going to happen. I use SmartWeb because sometimes they register at a more cheaper rate than others. But one downside of it is that when you host with a SmartWeb, it is usually very slow. Okay, it's asking me to write this code, so I have 5 R T 7 7. It's now searching. Okay, ClassicE3.com, as you can see it, and it sells for 5,000. See it here, it sells for 5,000 naira, a bit cheaper than what the global hosting is selling. It's registering. It registers for 5,000 naira, which is slightly more cheaper. Okay, let's see .com.ng. Let's see how much it sells for. .com.ng is available and it sells for 1,100 naira, a little bit cheaper than what global hosting is selling. Okay, that's about domain names. Now we can equally talk about hosting. Now when we talk about hosting, all those of your files, all those scripts that you write, all those pictures that you upload, all those things, all the website that you are developing have to be kept somewhere. Those files, those videos, all those things that you are hosting have to be kept somewhere. And where is it kept? It is kept in a server. And that server, where it is kept, who gives you access to it? A hosting company gives you an access to server. It's like you want to do a business. You want a shop or you want an office. You want a shop where you sell your materials. If you want a shop where you sell you have to pay for shop rent. Am I right? Now, when you pay for shop rent, you set up the shop, put your materials or the items that you are selling there. So that shop is like a hosting. While the address or the name of your shop is like a domain name. Now let us look at some of the hostings that we have. Let's look at the hosting. We have a lot of hosting, but I'm not going into details with with the types of hosting we are going to. Yeah, but let me choose web hosting. Let's see what you have to know about hosting. Then when you are talking about hosting, what comes into your mind is storage space, bandwidth. What comes into your mind is what? Storage space and what? Bandwidth. Okay, this is global hosting and it sells for 12,000 for 3 years. Let me switch it to only 1 year. Their basic plan sells for 4,350 naira per year. And when you pay that 4,350 naira, what are you getting? You are getting 1 gig of this space, 10 gig of bandwidth. You cannot have an add-on domain. You cannot have an add-on domain, zero add-on domain. You get a free SSL certificate. What is an SSL certificate? We're going to talk about that one later. Then you get a free website builder, unlimited file transfer protocol accounts, unlimited MySQL databases, unlimited email accounts, unlimited subdomain. There is a difference between an add-on domain and a subdomain. Like when we say blog.chike.com, it's an add-on domain. Then when you say chike.com/ maybe materials, then we are talking about subdomain. Now, when you buy this plan, you only get 1 gig of disk space. That means you cannot have materials bigger than disk space, or bigger than 1 gig on that website. And you only have 10 gigabytes of bandwidth. And this bandwidth determines the speed of your website. It determines the speed of your website. So this is the standard plan. The standard year plan for the year sells for 4,715 naira for a year. And for this 4,715 naira, you get 2 gigabytes of disk space, 20 gigabytes of bandwidth, 1 add-on domain. Then we have an extended plan. The extended plan sells for 7,000 naira per year. And for that extended plan, you have a 6 gigabytes of disk space and unlimited bandwidth, 2 add-on domains. Then you equally have the extended plus. For that extended plus, the 1 year plan sells for 12,500 naira, makes use of 10 gig of disk space, unlimited bandwidth, 3 add-on domains. That means you can have only 3 add-on domains. And the premium plan sells for 30K a year, 25 gig space, unlimited bandwidth, 4 add-on domain. Okay, let's look at another hosting company and see their listing. Then we have let me choose Linus shared hosting, which is the most popular hosting plan that we use. The Linus shared hosting is the most popular hosting plan that we normally use. Okay, let us look at some of their prices. Okay, SmartWeb sells their starter plan for 5,000 naira, which is at 450 naira monthly. Okay, let's see what you get when you pay the 5,000 naira. You get 3 gigabytes of disk space, you get 15 gigabytes of bandwidth. Unlimited, unlimited. Then when you buy the standard plan, which is 6,500 naira, which amounts to 500 naira monthly, you get 10 gig. And they tell you that this thing is for sites, websites with low traffic, websites that don't have much visitors on them. You have 10 gig, 60 gig of space. Yeah. Then this one sells for 10,000 naira, which is the business plan, which is what they refer to as their best value, and their best value sells for 20 gigabytes and 150 gigabytes of bandwidth. Then the one of 15,000 naira, you get 250 gigabytes of bandwidth and of space and unlimited bandwidth, and like that it continues. Okay, let's look at another hosting. Let me say Namecheap shared hosting. Let's look at Namecheap shared hosting. Okay, looking at Namecheap shared hosting. They have a Stellar and they sell it for €1.25 €1.25 per month. That's 1.25 euros per month. Their Stellar plan sells for 4.35 euros per month. Now, what do you get? When you pay for the Stellar plan, you get 3 websites, the CMS of your choice, including a free website builder. So you can see this is a foreign host. Namecheap is a foreign host. Then there is another foreign host that I prefer to use, Hostinja. Let me check it out. Let me see how it costs. Hostinja. Hostinja is another very good host. It's another very good foreign host. So their own, let's look at hosting. We have $1.3 a month, and it's a single shared hosting. Let's see what we have in single share. It's only one website, 30 gig of this space. That's when you are expecting about 10,000 visitors on a month, one email account, free SSL. There is no free domain. There are some hosting that gives you a free domain when you pay for their hosting plan. Now, when you pay for their hosting plan for the first year, they give you a free domain. Subsequently, you start paying. Now, there is something I want to let you know about foreign hosts and the Nigerian hosts. Foreign hosts, most times, are better. They give better services, more uptime. But there is one challenge with using a foreign host. If you are a starter and you are running on a serious budget, you can consider a Nigerian host. Global hosting can be okay. SmartWeb, I have once hosted a website on SmartWeb. The website was damn too slow that I have to abandon the hosting and still buy another hosting. That was back in 5 years ago. So I have to abandon the hosting and buy another hosting. So for quite some time, I have not been using their hosting plan, so I cannot tell exactly, but I'm talking from experience. From the previous experience that I had, their hosting was not that too smart. For global hosting, I've been using global hosting. Global hosting, though it's a little bit expensive, but it's cool. It's cool. Their servers are okay. Their servers are a little bit faster, although you cannot compare them with a foreign host. So now you have to, when you are choosing your domain name, like I said earlier, you have to choose wisely. And when you are choosing your hosting plan, you have to choose wisely. When you are running on budget, when you are not sure, it is better you use a Nigerian host. Why will I tell you that it's better to use a Nigerian host? When I started earlier, about 7 or 8 years ago, I started with a foreign host. You know, when you are hosting, when you go to a foreign host like you have here in this hosting jar, most times the first or the initial payments are always very cheap. Then subsequently, it can go for twice the price. What am I trying to say? You are buying this hosting for $1.09 per month. You may come back to pay for it after 1 year, and it will be selling for $3 or even $4 or more. So why is it like that? They will present a very cheap price at the beginning. Then subsequently, their price will continue. Some company like Hosting Jar will tell you, this is what you are going to pay on subsequent years. So at least you know what you are going into. So there are times that after paying for the first year, you can't pay for the subsequent year again. This is why I advise you to go for the one you can pay, at least for a start. Now, when you start, when the business starts going, you can migrate from one hosting to another hosting. It's very possible. You can move your website maybe from global hosting or from smart web to hosting jar, or from hosting jar even to global hosting. You can move your websites. It's very, very possible. Although it requires some technicalities, but it's very, very possible. So it's good to start with the one you can handle. If you didn't start with the one you can handle, you might notice that after the first year, you may lose your website, which is very, very wrong. So it is better you started with the one that is low and then progress to the one that is high, unless you are a pro. So this is where I'm coming to the end of the lesson today. Remember that I said that when you are going to choose a domain name, choose a domain name that can easily be remembered. Choose a domain name that reflects your profession. Choose a domain name that can be easily be turned into a household name that reflects your brand. And when you are choosing a hosting, you choose a hosting that suits what you are doing. Foreign hosts are very good. Hosting Jar is very good. Bluehost is still okay. Although I had some issues with Bluehost. What was the issue I had with Bluehost? A virus entered into the system. They were not able to fix it. So at the time, I have to migrate some of the sites from Bluehost to another hosting. And Bluehost, though, is still cheap. The renewal could be twice the price. So you have to be careful with your hosting. You have to be careful with your domain name. Thank you once again. I still remain yours truly faithfully, Joshua Oriz.